My friend, if you're listening right now, if your heart is tender from the ache of being overlooked, left out, or abandoned, I want you to take a deep breath. I want you to know you are not alone in that feeling. That deep, soul-level pain that whispers you're not enough, that you don't belong, it's a universal human wound. But what if I told you that for the chosen, for those who carry a divine purpose, rejection is not a verdict on your value, but a sacred redirection? What if the very doors slamming shut are not signs of failure, but the hand of a loving God, gently, and sometimes painfully, steering you away from paths that would ultimately shrink your soul and silence your destiny? Let's sit with this truth for a moment. The pain is real. I'm not here to dismiss it. That moment you weren't chosen for the job, when the relationship ended without a clear reason, when you stood in a crowd of laughing people and felt a universe away, that isolation is a heavy cloak. It wraps around your shoulders and tells you a story of inadequacy. But heaven is telling a different story. A story where rejection is not random. It is often divine intervention. God Himself, in His fierce and loving wisdom, allowing certain doors to remain closed, not because you have no value, but precisely because you have a calling too sacred for those spaces. Human applause is a fickle compass. It cannot guide you to your true north. But divine choice, your name whispered in the heart of God before the world began, that is the unshakable ground of your identity. Look at the great tapestry of faith, and you will see this thread running through every single chosen life. Joseph, the dreamer, wasn't just disliked by his brothers. He was thrown into a pit, sold as a slave, and forgotten in a prison. Each rejection was a devastating blow. Yet, with heavenly hindsight, we see it. The pit was a passage. The prison was a preparation room. Egypt was not his plan B. It was the very stage for his God-given purpose. His brother's rejection was the unlikely current that carried him to his throne. Then there's Moses, a man straddling two worlds, belonging to neither. A prince in Egypt who was never Egyptian, a liberator to the Hebrews who was initially rejected. He ended up in the desert of Midian, a fugitive and a failure. But it was in that barren, lonely place, far from the palaces and the people, that the ordinary sand caught fire with God's presence. The burning bush didn't appear in Pharaoh's court, it appeared in the wilderness of rejection. Because sometimes, the most profound encounters with God happen only when every other voice has fallen silent, when every other invitation has been withdrawn. And David, the shepherd boy, anointed to be king, yet when the prophet Samuel came to his family, his own father didn't even think to call him from the fields. He was overlooked in his own house. But that rejection was a divine shield. God was hiding him, protecting him from a promotion that would have come too soon and cost him too much. The pastures where he felt forgotten became the training ground where he learned to depend on a presence far greater than human approval. And Jesus, the perfect Son of God, was despised and rejected by men. His own friends abandoned him. His own creation crucified him. The greatest rejection in history became the very source of our eternal acceptance. His pain purchased our healing. If the sinless Son of God walked this path of rejection, why would we, His followers, expect an easier road? So, let me speak this over your aching heart, that no you received, that relationship that ended, that opportunity that vanished. It might not be a sign of your lack, but a sign of your great worth. God sometimes allows closed doors to keep you from settling in a room that is too small for your destiny. What feels like a cruel push is often a gracious pull. Think of a loving parent who pulls a child back from the curb of a busy street. The child only feels the restraint, the painful no, but the parent sees the danger the child cannot comprehend. In the same way, your Father in heaven sees the whole map of your life. He knows the paths that lead to life and those that lead to captivity. His rejections are often His protections. This pain is also a sacred tool in the hands of the divine sculptor. Your character is not forged in the sunshine of universal applause, but in the silent, shadowed valleys of obscurity. It is when you are not celebrated, when you are forgotten, that a different kind of strength is born within you, a resilience that doesn't depend on external validation. Joseph in prison, David in the pastures, Paul in his chains, each found a strength that circumstance could not shatter. Rejection strips away the superficial, forcing us to find our identity not in who approves of us, but in whose we are. It forges in us an unshakable core, so that when the time for promotion comes, we will not be swayed by praise, but anchored in purpose. And then there is the deep, echoing loneliness that follows rejection. This, perhaps, is the hardest part. It's a silence that screams, an isolation that can make you feel invisible in a world full of people. But this loneliness is not your punishment, it is your invitation. It is an altar call to a deeper relationship with God. When every human voice is gone, His voice becomes clearer. When every earthly comfort is removed, His presence becomes your portion. The desert becomes a sanctuary. The silence becomes the place where you learn to hear the whisper that truly matters. Don't run from this loneliness. Don't numb it with noise and distraction. Lean into it. Ask God to meet you there. For it is in this sacred space that He heals the wounds that crowds could never touch. And finally, know this, your pain will not be wasted. The rejection that leaves a scar today will become a testimony tomorrow. God does not waste your tears. He collects them. He uses them to water the seeds of a future ministry you can't yet imagine. People are not inspired by perfect, unscarred lives. They are healed by raw, real stories of overcoming. Your deepest point of pain is likely to become your most powerful platform for purpose. Those who have felt the sting of being cast out develop a profound sensitivity to the pain of others. Your rejection has gifted you with empathy, with a keen eye for the lonely, with a heart that understands the language of the broken. This is the pattern of heaven, first the cross, then the resurrection. First the rejection, then the glory. Joseph's pit led to a palace. David's fields led to a throne. Jesus' cross led to an empty tomb and an eternal crown. Your story is part of this same redemptive arc. The same mouths that spoke against you will one day witness the favor upon your life. Not for your glory, but for God's. So, chosen one, lift your head. The closed door was a divine detour. The silence was a sacred classroom. The pain is being transformed into purpose. You were not rejected, you were rerouted, protected, and set apart. Your identity is not found in the fickle opinions of people, but in the eternal, unchangeable declaration of God. He says you are chosen. He says you are beloved. He says you are His. And no rejection on earth can ever change that. Keep walking, even if you walk alone for a while. Keep trusting, even when nothing makes sense. Keep believing that the one who began a good work in you is faithfully completing it. Your best days are not behind you. They are waiting for you, just up ahead, on the other side of the pain.